The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. There were 12 of them, each one the size of a small city. They hung in the sky like dark clouds, blocking out the sun in some places. People all over the world stopped what they were doing and stared up at the sky. Within hours, every government on Earth received the same message. It came in all languages at once, translated perfectly by technology humans had never seen before. The message was simple and terrifying. We are the Galactic Concordat. Your world has been selected for integration into galactic civilization. You will comply with our requirements, or your species will be eliminated. You have 72 hours to respond. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in New York, their faces pale with fear. Nobody had ever believed this day would actually come. Sure, people talked about aliens, made movies about them, but this was real. The ships were real. The threat was real. Commander Velk of the Concordat expected the humans to panic. In his 300 years of service, he had overseen the integration of 47 worlds. It always went the same way. First came denial, then anger, then desperate negotiation, and finally surrender. The species that refused were destroyed. It was that simple. The Concordat had perfected this process over 8,000 years. They would arrive, make their demands, and collect what they needed. Every species in the galaxy followed the same rules. The strong dominated the weak. That was the natural order of things. But something strange happened during that first meeting. The human diplomats didn't cry or beg. They didn't threaten or bluster. Instead, a woman named Sarah Chun stood up and asked a simple question. May we see the integration manual? Velk was confused. No species had ever asked for that before. The manual was thousands of pages long, filled with regulations and procedures that had been written over millennia. Most species couldn't even read it, let alone understand it. Why would you want that? Velk asked through the communication system. Because if we're going to be integrated into your system, we should understand how it works, Sarah said calmly. You're asking us to follow your rules. We'd like to know what those rules are. Velk laughed. It was a cold, mechanical sound. Very well. It will make no difference. You have 72 hours. The manual arrived 30 minutes later. All 47,000 pages of it. It landed in the email inboxes of every government, university, and legal institution on Earth. The file was so large it crashed several servers. While diplomats continued talking to the Concordat, buying time, something else was happening behind the scenes. Sarah Chun sent out a call that went to every law school, every tech company, every government agency on Earth. She needed lawyers, programmers, linguists, and anyone who could read complex documents quickly. We need to read this entire manual, she told them. Every word, every clause, every footnote. We have 3 days to find something, anything, that can help us. Thousands of people answered the call. They worked in shifts around the clock, dividing the manual into sections. Law students in Mumbai analyzed trade regulations. Programmers in Berlin searched for logical contradictions. Retired judges in Buenos Aires examined enforcement procedures. Nobody slept. Nobody stopped. The manual was a nightmare to read. It contradicted itself constantly. Rules from different eras overlapped and conflicted. Some sections were written in languages that no longer existed. The Concordat had been adding to this document for 8,000 years, and nobody had ever bothered to check if it all made sense. On the second day, a young lawyer in Toronto named Marcus Webb found something interesting. Article 3847 stated that species under integration could not be forced to relocate if it violated their cultural reproduction practices. The provision 12.9.4 required that 40% of every species be relocated to labor worlds within the first year. Marcus sent his finding to Sarah. She looked at it for a long moment, then smiled for the first time in 2 days. "Keep looking," she told everyone. "Find more." They did. By the end of the second day, they had found hundreds of contradictions. The Concordat's legal system was held together by fear and precedent, not logic. Nobody had ever challenged it because nobody had ever survived long enough to try. On the third day, Sarah Chun sent a new message to Commander Velk. "We've reviewed your integration manual," she said. "We have some concerns. Article 3847 conflicts with Provision 12.9. 4. Enforcement. Doctrine 88 contradicts Cultural Preservation Statute 445. Section 12003 requires genetic modifications that violate the principles established in Section 203. We've documented 472 such conflicts. According to your own rules, specifically Section 29456, Paragraph 12, any species that identifies legal contradictions in the integration process has the right to request a formal review." There was a long silence from the Concordat ships. Velk stared at the human transmission in disbelief. He pulled up Section 29456 himself. It was ancient, written 6,000 years ago by a long-dead species. Nobody had invoked it in recorded history. But it was real, and according to Concordat law, once a formal review was requested, integration could not proceed until the review was complete. "This is a delay tactic," Velk said angrily. "It will not save you." "Maybe not," Sarah agreed. "But, according to your rules, you can't proceed while we're under review. And we're not done reading yet. We've only gone through the manual once. I think we should read it again, more carefully this time. There might be more contradictions we missed." Velk felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. These humans had done something impossible. They had read the entire integration manual in 3 days. Not only read it, but understood it well enough to find its weaknesses. "The review process will take years," he warned. "We know," Sarah said. "We're patient. We've got plenty of lawyers." All over Earth, people watched the news as the Concordat ships remained in orbit, unable to proceed. The deadline passed. No bombardment came. Humanity had bought itself time, not with weapons or technology, but with words and rules and the enemy's own bureaucracy. In her office, Sarah Chun looked at the manual again. They had found a way to stop the invasion. Now they needed to find a way to win. And she had a feeling that the Concordat's own rules would give them everything they needed. The formal review process began 2 weeks after the deadline passed. Commander Velk had expected it to be a formality, something that would delay the humans for a few months at most. He would let them have their legal procedures, let them feel like they had some control, and then proceed with integration once the review concluded in the Concordat's favor. He didn't understand humans yet. That was his first mistake. Sarah Chun assembled a team of 3,000 people. They called themselves the Integration Response Group, but everyone else started calling them the Legal Army. They set up headquarters in Geneva, but they worked from everywhere. Tokyo, London, Nairobi, Sao Paulo, Sydney. Every time zone, every language, every culture contributed. The Concordat sent a review officer, a bureaucrat named Thelm, who had been doing this job for 200 years. He arrived expecting to answer a few questions and close the case. Instead, he walked into a room full of humans holding tablets and documents, their eyes bright with determination. "We have some questions about the integration process," Sarah said politely. "Let's start with the citizenship requirements outlined in Section 445. According to this, integrated species are granted citizenship rights after completion of their service quotas. But Section 1203 states that citizenship can only be granted to individuals who have demonstrated loyalty to the Concordat. How can A species demonstrate loyalty before they're integrated? Thelm blinked. That's always been interpreted as. We'd like the interpretation in writing, please, another liar interrupted. For the record, Thelm spent 3 days answering that one question. By the time he finished, the humans had 600 more questions ready. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Marcus Webb had been digging deeper into the Concordat's economic system. What he found shocked him. The entire galactic economy was built on debt. Species were integrated, given technology and resources. They couldn't afford and then forced to work for generations to pay it back. Except the debt never decreased. The interest, the fees, the penalties. They were designed to keep species enslaved forever. Marcus brought his findings to Sarah. They sat in her office late at night, reviewing documents on screens that covered an entire wall. This isn't just conquest, Marcus said quietly. It's slavery with extra steps. They call it integration, but these species never get free. Look at this one, the Kelma. They've been integrated for 400 years. They're still paying off their initial debt. Sarah stared at the numbers. Her hands trembled slightly. The Concordat's own founding charter prohibits hereditary bondage. Section 12, Article 2. No species shall be bound by debts incurred by previous generations. But that's exactly what they're doing. Yes, Sarah said slowly. And that means every debt they've issued in the last 8,000 years is illegal under their own laws. Marcus looked at her. You're thinking of filing suit. Not just us, them. Sarah pulled up a list of the 47 species currently under Concordat control. We file on their behalf. A class action lawsuit. We argue that the entire debt system violates the Concordat's own charter. They'll never allow it. They won't have a choice. Once we file, their own legal system requires them to respond. And while they're responding, those species will know the truth. They'll know they don't actually owe anything. The lawsuit was filed 3 months after the review began. Sarah Chun, on behalf of 47 subjugated species, versus the Galactic Concordat. The claim was simple. The entire economic structure of the Concordat was illegal under its own founding principles. Commander Velk received the notification and immediately contacted his superiors. This had escalated beyond a simple integration. The humans weren't just defending themselves anymore. They were attacking the foundation of Concordat power. Destroy them, the High Council ordered. Ignore the legal proceedings. Eliminate the threat. But Velk hesitated. The moment they attacked Earth, they would be violating their own legal framework. Every species in the galaxy would see it. The Concordat's authority came from its laws, its procedures, its appearance of legitimacy. If they abandoned that, while Velk debated with the Council, something unexpected happened. The other species started responding. The Kellner, who had been quiet for 400 years, suddenly filed their own lawsuit. Then the Prexian did the same. Then the Voltim Dot within a month, 32 of the 47 subjugated species had filed legal challenges. They used the exact same arguments humans had provided. They cited the same contradictions, the same illegal practices. The Concordat's courts were overwhelmed. They had handled perhaps 5 legal challenges in the last 1,000 years. Now they were receiving hundreds per day. And then the humans escalated again. A message arrived at Concordat headquarters from an anonymous source. It was a simple text file containing administrative passwords for the Concordat central database. Every debt record, every integration contract, every enforcement order, all of it accessible. How did they get this? Velk demanded. His technology officer looked embarrassed. Our security systems are 8,000 years old, Commander. We've never needed to update them. Nobody has ever tried to hack us before. And the humans did? Apparently. And they didn't just hack us. They've been Optimizing? Velk felt cold. Explain. Debt records are being altered. Small changes, nothing obvious. A decimal point moved here, an interest rate adjusted there. The Kellner's debt just decreased by 40%. The Prexian debt was mysteriously transferred to an account that doesn't exist. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Fix it. We're trying. But every time we restore the backup, it gets corrupted again within hours. It's like they're inside our system, changing things in real time. Across the galaxy, species that have been enslaved for generations started receiving notifications. Their debts were reduced. Their quotas were lowered. Some debts disappeared entirely. Nobody knew how it was happening, but rumors spread quickly. The humans had done this. Somehow, impossibly, the newest species in the galaxy had hacked the oldest and most powerful institution in known space. Commander Velk sat in his ship and watched Earth spinning below. The planet looked so small, so insignificant. How had they done this? How had they turned everything upside down in just a few months? His communication system beeped. It was Sarah Chun. "Commander," she said, "I thought you should know. We've finished our second review of the integration manual. We found 300 more contradictions. We'll be filing amended requests for review tomorrow. This should add another few years to the process." "You can't win," Velk said. "Even if you delay us, even if you disrupt our systems, we're still stronger. We can still destroy you." Sarah smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized they held all the cards. "You could destroy us," she agreed. "But then you'd have to explain to every other species in the galaxy why you violated your own laws to do it. You'd lose legitimacy. And without legitimacy, Commander, you're just another group of bullies with guns. How long do you think 47 angry species would let you stay in power?" The transmission ended. Velk sat in silence, finally understanding what was happening. The humans hadn't just defended themselves. They had started a revolution. 6 months after the Concordat ships first arrived, the galaxy was in chaos. Species that had never questioned their servitude were now filing legal challenges. Debt records were corrupted beyond repair. The Concordat's courts were paralyzed by thousands of pending cases. And at the center of it all, humanity kept pushing. Commander Velk received an urgent summons from the High Council. They wanted answers. They wanted solutions. Most of all, they wanted the humans stopped before the entire system collapsed. The Council met in a massive station orbiting the Concordat capital world. Velk stood before them, 12 ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for longer than most species had existed. "Explain this disaster," the council leader demanded. Her name was Surith, and she had overseen 3,000 integrations in her lifetime. Not one had ever failed. "The humans are using our own laws against us," Velk said. "They found every contradiction, every loophole, every outdated clause in 8,000 years of regulations. And they're teaching other species to do the same. Then ignore the laws. Destroy Earth and anyone who supports them. If we do that, we prove the humans right. We prove that our laws mean nothing. Every species will see us for what we really are." "And what are we?" Surith asked dangerously. Velk hesitated, then spoke the truth he had been avoiding. "Conquerors. Slavers. We've dressed it up in procedure and paperwork, but that's what we are." The humans saw through it immediately. Silence filled the chamber. Nobody had spoken those words aloud in millennia. "Then we rewrite the laws," another council member said. "We create new regulations that close these loopholes." "We've tried," Velk admitted. "Every time we draft new rules, the humans find problems with them within hours. They have thousands of legal experts analyzing everything we produce. They're faster than we are, and they understand our system better than we do now. On Earth, Sarah Chun was having a very different meeting. Representatives from 18 species had traveled to Earth in secret, risking everything to meet with the humans who had started this revolution. A Kellner named Thresh spoke first. "You've given us hope," he said, his translator converting his clicking sounds into human speech. "For 400 years, my people have been slaves. Now we see a possibility of freedom. But hope alone won't defeat the Concordat. What's your plan?" Sarah looked around the room at the assembled aliens. Some were large, some small. Some breathed oxygen, others required special atmosphere suits. But they all had one thing in common. They were tired of being controlled. "We can't beat them with weapons," Sarah said. "We don't have their technology or their numbers. But we don't need to beat them. We need to replace them." "With what?" a Prexian delegate asked. "With something better. A real federation. Not one based on conquest and debt, but on cooperation and mutual benefit. We've been working on a framework. We call it the Stellar Commonwealth." She activated a holographic display. Documents appeared in the air, translated into every language represented in the room. The Commonwealth would be based on principles that humanity has been developing for centuries. Democratic representation, constitutional limits on power, independent courts, transparent government. Every species gets a voice. Every world controls its own resources. No debt slavery. No forced relocations. The Concordat will never accept this, Thresh said. They don't have to. We're not asking for permission. We're building it anyway. Right now, Earth and your 18 worlds make 19 members. That's a start. Others will join when they see it works. Marcus Webb spoke up from across the room. We've also been working on the technical side. The Concordat's computer systems are vulnerable. We've already proven we can access them. Once we have enough member worlds, we can coordinate a synchronized action. We erase every debt record, every servitude contract, every integration order, all at once. By the time they rebuild their databases, we'll have our own systems running. This is revolution, a small Voltham said quietly. They will fight back. Let them, Sarah said. We've studied their military capabilities. They're powerful, but they're spread across the entire galaxy. They can't be everywhere at once. And every world they attack is another world that joins us. They can't win a war against half the galaxy. The meeting continued for hours. By the end, all 18 species had agreed to join the Commonwealth. They would begin implementing its principles immediately, regardless of what the Concordat said. News of the Commonwealth spread quickly. The Concordat tried to suppress it, but information moved faster than their sensors could work. Within weeks, 12 more worlds had declared their intention to join. Then 20 more. Then 50. Commander Velk watched his empire crumble in real time. The High Council issued threats, but they couldn't act on them. Every military action would drive more species to the Commonwealth. Every enforcement would prove the humans' point. He requested one more meeting with Sarah Chun. This time, he traveled to Earth himself. His ship landed in Geneva, and for the first time in his 300 years, he walked on a world that wasn't under Concordat control. Sarah met him in a simple office building. No guards, no ceremony. Just two people talking. You've won, Velk said without preamble. The Council doesn't admit it yet, but I know. In another year, maybe two, the Concordat will collapse. Half the galaxy will be in your Commonwealth. We didn't want to destroy you, Sarah said. We just wanted to be free. You did more than that. You showed every species in the galaxy that we're not invincible. That our laws were always lies. That another way is possible. He paused. What happens to us? To the Concordat species? Do we face trials? Punishment? Sarah considered that. The Commonwealth we're building has room for everyone, including you, if you are willing to change, to actually follow the principles you claim to have. You'd let us join? After everything? Under one condition. You face justice for what you've done. Real justice in real courts with real consequences. Some of your people will go to prison. Some will pay restitution. But those who are willing to change, who want to build something better, yes, there's room for you. Velk felt something strange. After 300 years of certainty, of knowing exactly how the galaxy worked, he felt lost, but also relieved. I'll take your offer to the council, he said. I don't know if they'll accept. They will eventually, because the alternative is watching everything they built disappear and starting over from nothing. Over the next 2 years, the Galactic Concordat slowly dissolved. Some council members refused to change and retreated to their home worlds, isolated and irrelevant. Others, like Velk, joined the Commonwealth and faced trial for their actions. Some were imprisoned. Others paid fines or performed community service. All of them had to adapt to a new galaxy where they weren't in charge. The stellar Commonwealth grew to include 93 worlds. Its charter was written by representatives from 20 different species. But the core principles came from humanity, freedom, justice, equality, democracy, things that seemed obvious to humans but were revolutionary to the rest of the galaxy. Sarah Chun became the first Secretary General of the Commonwealth, elected by vote from all member worlds. In her acceptance speech, she said something that became famous across the stars. We didn't save the galaxy with weapons. We did it with words, with laws, with the simple belief that systems can be changed. The Concordat thought their way was the only way because it had always been that way. They forgot that rules written by people can be rewritten by people. That's the real human superpower. Not that we're stronger or smarter, but that we never accept that's just how things are as a final answer. The galaxy learned. Slowly, carefully, but they learned. 5 years after the Concordat ships first appeared over Earth, the galaxy looked completely different. The massive bureaucratic empire that had ruled for 8 millennia was gone, replaced by something that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. The Stellar Commonwealth operated from a new station built in neutral space, far from any single world's territory. It wasn't as massive as the old Concordat capital, but it was something the galaxy had never seen before, a place where every species had equal voice. Dr. Marcus Webb walked through the Commonwealth Justice Center, still amazed that this place existed. The building held courts where real judges heard real cases. Not the stage proceedings of the Concordat, but actual trials where evidence mattered and defendants had rights. Today was special. Today was the last of the major trials from the Concordat era. Surith, the former head of the High Council, stood in the defendant's position. She looked smaller somehow, less intimidating without her power and her armies. Around her sat the other former council members who had refused to surrender peacefully. They had tried to rebuild the Concordat to reclaim their empire. They had failed. The judge was a Kellner named Thresh, the same one who had come to Earth 5 years ago seeking hope. His people had voted him into this position, trusting him to deliver justice fairly. Surith of the Concordat, Thresh said, his voice steady. You and your co-defendants are charged with crimes against sapient beings. Forced servitude, economic exploitation, cultural destruction, and in 3 cases, genocide of species that refused integration. How do you plead? I plead the truth, Surith said coldly. Everything I did was legal under Concordat law. You're punishing me for following the rules. No, Thresh corrected. We're punishing you for creating rules that allowed atrocities, for building a system designed to enslave, for believing that legality and morality are the same thing. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Witnesses came from 40 different worlds, telling stories of suffering that had lasted generations. The evidence was overwhelming. The Concordat had detailed records of everything they had done, never imagining those records would be used against them. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. However, Thresh said during sentencing, this court recognizes that you are products of your system as much as its creators. You will spend 20 years in rehabilitation, learning what you refuse to understand, that all sapient beings deserve freedom. After that, if you demonstrate genuine change, you will be released. The Commonwealth believes in justice, not revenge. Surith looked shocked. You're not executing us? No, that would make us like you. Far from the courthouse on Earth, Sarah Chung sat in a university lecture hall. She had retired from active politics 2 years ago, preferring to teach the next generation. Her class was called Comparative Galactic Governance, and it was always full. Today's topic was implementation challenges. The Commonwealth looks great on paper, she told her students, a mix of humans and aliens studying together. But making it work in practice is much harder. We have 93 member worlds now, but that means 93 different cultures, value systems, and priorities. We argue constantly about trade policy, resource allocation, military cooperation. Democracy is messy. A young human student raised her hand. Professor Chun, do you ever regret it? Starting all this? Some people say the Concordat was more stable, that we've created too much chaos. Sarah considered the question carefully. Stability isn't always good. A prison is stable. A grave is stable. Yes, the Commonwealth is messier than the Concordat, but it's also freer. Species can disagree with each other now without fear of destruction. That's progress, even when it's frustrating. A Prexian student spoke up, his tentacles gesturing thoughtfully. My grandparents remember the Concordat. They say life was simpler then. You knew your place, knew what was expected. Now everything is uncertain. Your grandparents are right, Sarah acknowledged. Freedom is uncertain. You have to make choices instead of following orders. You have to think for yourself. That's scary. But would they really want to go back? The Prexian considered, then rippled in his species equivalent of a smile. No, they complain, but they vote in every election. They argue about policy. They're alive in a way they never were before. Across the galaxy, the transition continued. Not everyone was happy about it. Some species had thrived under the Concordat and resented the loss of their privileges. Some found democracy confusing and wanted someone to just tell them what to do. Some missed the certainty of the old ways. But slowly, the Commonwealth became normal. Children grew up knowing nothing else. They learned about the Concordat in history classes, shocked that anyone had ever thought that system was acceptable. The economy adjusted too. Without debt slavery, the old Concordat species had to actually pay for labor and resources. Some couldn't adapt and declined. Others found that fair trade was more sustainable than extraction. New economic powerhouses emerged. Species that had been held down for millennia suddenly had opportunities to innovate and grow. Earth became a hub of legal education. Aliens came to human universities to study law, government, and social organization. Humans traveled to other worlds to learn their techniques and traditions. The exchange of ideas accelerated technological and social development across the Commonwealth. Commander Velk, released from prison after serving his sentence, found work as a teacher. He lectured on Concordat history at the Commonwealth Academy, ensuring that future generations understood what had gone wrong and why. One day, he received a visitor in his office. It was Sarah Chun. "Commander," she said, smiling. Or should I call you Professor now? Valk is fine. I'm not a commander anymore. Thank the stars. He gestured for her to sit. What brings you here? Curiosity, mostly. I wanted to see how you were doing. Last time we met, you were on trial. Velk laughed, a sound that still surprised him. He had learned to find humor in things, something the Concordat had never taught him. I'm doing well, actually. Teaching is satisfying, helping young people understand the past so they don't repeat it. It's good work. He paused. I wanted to thank you for putting you in prison, for giving me the chance to change. Under the Concordat, I would have continued forever, never questioning, never growing. You forced me to see what I really was. That was a gift, even though it didn't feel like one at the time. Sarah nodded. The Commonwealth isn't perfect. We still have problems. Corruption, inequality, conflict between species. But at least we can talk about these problems now. We can try to fix them. That's the real difference, isn't it? Not that you solved everything, but that you created a system where solutions are possible. They talked for an hour, two former enemies who had become something like friends. When Sarah left, Velk felt grateful for the strange twists of fate that had brought him here. The Commonwealth continued to grow. New worlds joined every year, attracted by the promise of freedom and equality. Some joined smoothly. Others required extensive negotiation and adjustment. Each addition made the Commonwealth stronger, but also more complex. 20 years after first contact, Earth hosted the Commonwealth Summit, a gathering of leaders from all member worlds. They met to celebrate how far they had come and to plan for the future. Sarah Chun, now an old woman, gave the opening address. We started this journey because we refused to accept slavery as the price of joining galactic civilization, she said. We believed that freedom was possible, that systems could be changed, that a better galaxy was within reach. We were right, but the work isn't finished. It will never be finished. Every generation will face new challenges, new injustices, new problems that require new solutions. That's not a failure of our system. Our system. That's the point of it. The Commonwealth isn't a final answer. It's a framework for finding answers together. The assembled delegates applauded. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species united by common cause. In human schools, children still learned the story of how their species had joined the galaxy. How they had faced impossible odds and won not with weapons, but with words. How they had turned bureaucracy into a weapon and law into a shield. The story always ended the same way, with a lesson that became fundamental to Commonwealth education. Systems are made by people, and people can change them. Never accept injustice just because it's old or widespread. Never stop asking if there's a better way. The galaxy learned this lesson slowly, painfully, but thoroughly. And once learned, it could never be forgotten. Humanity's greatest gift to the stars wasn't technology or art or culture. It was the simple, revolutionary idea that nothing is permanent except the right to change things. The Concordat had ruled for 8,000 years and believed they would rule forever. They forgot that forever is a long time and circumstances change. Eventually, inevitably, someone always finds a better way. This time, that someone was humanity. Next time, it might be another species. The Commonwealth made that possible. And in making it possible, they ensured that the galaxy would continue to grow, to improve, to become more than it had ever been before. That was the real victory. Not the defeat of the Concordat, but the creation of something that could outlast any single species or civilization. A system built on principles that transcended culture and biology, freedom, justice, dignity, the right to determine your own future. These were human ideas once. Now they belong to the galaxy. And the galaxy was better for Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.